There we go. Okay, great. So hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Jordan. I'm the managing director of the IEA, and I'm the executive director of the Executives Association of Charlotte in beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. Happy to be here with you all today. Nice to see some friendly faces on the call, and also always great to see some new faces as well. I'm sure people are going to be trickling in, and that's a-okay. That's one of the reasons why we do record this. So I have the great pleasure today of introducing Kim Frost. And Kim, we looked back, Kim has given an IEA webinar before. She was one of our very first webinar presenters back in February of 2020, which is kind of funny because that's when nobody knew how to use Zoom and these weren't very popular, and we didn't really have a lot of engagement. So it's exciting to kind of see 3 years later. Now everyone knows how to get this going. So we're glad to have so many of you join us today. And after this session is over, it will be available on the IEA YouTube site, which I will pop a link to that up in the chat so that you can share that with folks that you missed, or if you want to share this with someone in your office or a client or another, someone else from your executives association, you're welcome to do that. So I am going to go ahead and introduce Kim here with Frost Connections. Kim began her career in one of the largest professional staffing firms, where she was recognized as one of the strongest performers amongst her peers in the first 6 months on the job. She then set a record for her local office as being the best performer in the history of the company. She transitioned into corporate recruiting when she was hired by her #1 client. In June of 2010, Kim started her own firm, filling a void for high-touch recruiting services that were lacking in the market. She knew she could deliver a superior customer experience while supplying A-level talent. The number of new clients she gained through referrals has proven her model is both on target and needed. With a pulse on the market and delivering exceptional service, her expertise is highly sought after. In her spare time, Kim enjoys walking with her pups, her Peloton, wine tasting, and considers herself a total foodie. It's my kind of girl. With a passion for animal rescue, she's adopted several animals in need, and if it weren't for her husband, she'd have a whole farm. She devotes time and resources to a variety of local and national charities. And Kim is a member of the Seattle Executives Association. So Kim, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. It's funny because I see a few of my Seattle execs on the call, and Melissa, maybe what they don't know is I'm doing my class talk tomorrow, though my class talk is going to be different. So when Lisa Woodstock asked me to talk again back in 2020, I talked about the candidate experience and how important it is in our hiring process. And in fact, I just got off the phone with a candidate right now that has gone through kind of a clunky experience with my client. And so it is so important to have that really good candidate experience, because it says a lot about your brand. It could be a determining factor if they join or not, but also, future business. So I've got some slides. I'm not going to walk through every bullet point. You can read those. We'll have a conversation. I've asked everybody, if you put what's the position in your company, any particular reason why you joined this call or what you hope to get out of it. But I would love this to be a Q&A as well. So as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have any hiring needs now, or you just don't hire, you can apply these same principles to getting new clients. So before we start, does anybody have any questions or anything they want me to hit on? And if you do, you can just raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll pull up my presentation. We're good? Okay, awesome. Hang on, let me get up here. Sorry, I was getting ahead now. So let me get my screen sharing. Okay, I think I'm doing this right. I'm going to ask you all if you can share my screen, if you can see my screen.
Not yet.
Okay. There we go. Share. Great. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
And here is my PowerPoint. Okay. So let me go into the slideshow. We talked a little bit about who I am. And if anyone has any questions about Zoom, let myself or Lisa know. So one of the things that I did is updated our hiring practices. Obviously, we've changed a ton. We've gone through a lot during COVID, working from home. Some businesses have never worked from home because they've been essential. We're moving back to hybrid. But it is still very important that, we provide the best customer candidate experience for our business. So here's a couple things about updated hiring practices that just came out after COVID. And one of the things that I'm going to focus on tomorrow in our class talk is writing a job description. So most people, most companies will write a job description and either post it to get candidates or referrals. There's probably 10-20% of people that hire firms like ours because they're really tough niche positions. But the biggest thing I can tell you is not write a job description of, here are the qualifications, here are the requirements, but really talk about what needs to be done. Because if you're posting your job, you want to set yourself apart from your competitors, but also get people excited to say, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to be doing, and have them apply to your job. When clients tell me that they're looking for someone that's been there, done that, I say, chances are we're not going to find that person. And just because somebody has the experience doesn't mean they're going to be successful. So what you want to find is somebody who has the motivation and the ambition to be successful in the role. So there always has to be a learning curve, right? So we want to make sure that we provide enough learning curve to help them advance their career. I always say if it's too much of a learning curve, we're not setting them up for success. And if it's not enough, will they be bored or will they be looking elsewhere? The biggest place that I always say to get your new hires is through your employee referrals, having an alumni program. And so I'd be curious how many of you all have a referral program. And usually it's money, but sometimes you could do something as a day off or a gift card to a spa or some type of it doesn't have to be expensive, but I think the harder the position, the longer that you have been looking, that maybe you entice your employees with employee referrals. And you can structure it where, let's just say if you give cash, it's not all up front. You can structure it, say, at 30 days and at 60 days. Because you want to make sure that you're hiring, the best talent. I had one of our electricians in Seattle Executive was having a really hard time finding electricians. And so one of the things that I said that was going to be important is to get involved with your colleges and programs. And so it does take some effort, but I think that pays off spades. I know a couple of folks, businesses in our execs program are very tied into the schools and trade associations. And then the other two things we've been hearing a lot of: flexible work environment and benefits and mental health. So if you can be flexible in the benefits that you offer, one of the things that I think I see companies are doing is asking their employees what type of benefits are important to them. And then if you can have a flexible environment where they're in the office, can they come in early, leave early? I know one of our execs members, they have to be on site every day, but the CEO is flexible and the candidate comes in early a couple days and leaves early, and then comes late and leaves late. And it's mainly because of traffic. So I'm not seeing any, I can't see the chat box. I can only see people on the side, but does anybody, if you have any questions on this, if you could unmute yourself and just ask, otherwise I'll go on to the next slide. We're good? Okay. So I think the biggest thing to remember, it's not a one size fits all. And yes, it does require some time and energy, but this is a great time to really get to know your team. I have an interesting stat up of millennials and Gen X and what's important to them and how they make up the workforce, but the meaning and purpose. So really providing meaning and purpose to your employees. When people tell me salary, it's never the number one motivating factor why someone leaves a job or takes a job. Okay, so here's some stats. And the one that I really want to point out is millennials and Gen X right now make up 40% of our workforce. And by 2030, it's going to be almost 60%. So the majority of these folks were born with devices, and they are the most radically and ethically diverse generation in US history. And so being able to understand our workforce is going to be really important. Unemployment rates are still really low. We're seeing a lot of job changes at the C level, which means that there's going to be organizational changes and movement. And then this is another year that we're seeing all-time record high of people intending to switch jobs this year. So these are all things to think about as we're developing our hiring. Okay. So this is where I want to talk about the whole, end-to-end process. So when you have people apply to your jobs, it does start with the application process. So if you have an applicant tracking system where somebody can upload their resume to the job, we want to make that as seamless as possible. There are a lot of great, inexpensive, what we call ATSs, applicant tracking systems, on the market right now. So that is going to be something. I had a friend that told me that he had to fill out 11 pages for a pretty reputable company. And he said, I just didn't do it. He was really interested in the job, but he said, I'm not filling out 11 pages. And then also make sure that your website is mobile friendly, because like I said, the Gen Zs, they're used to this thing. And I don't know how they can type everything that they do, because my fingers, I'm messing up words constantly. So make sure you do have a mobile friendly website and an ATS. And then also, please respond to all the applicants, even if they're not qualified, just to send a thanks, but no thanks. And so if anybody wants a template of some really quick things that you can populate, I think that that's really important too for the experience. Okay. So again, a couple other stats. I don't need to go with those, but it is pretty astounding. The one that freaked me out was 9% of the applicants will ask others to boycott the product. So again, something to be mindful of when we're starting the application process, because we haven't even gotten to the interviews, right? Okay. Next slide. Okay. I don't know how many of you use Glassdoor, but when a candidate is interested in a company because they either apply or they get an outreach from us, they're going to do research on what the company culture is and what are people saying. And Glassdoor is a resource. Like I said, I don't agree with it because it is a paid service, right? So if someone gets a bad review, Glassdoor will reach out to you and say, oh, I can help you develop a campaign to have those go away. But I do think it's important that you know what is being said about your company. I have Google crawlers set up with Kim Frost, Frost Connections, Frost Recruiting. So when something is, when we do appear in some type of media, and the majority of the time it's not me, but it's good to know what's out there. But I think that it's important for you to all know what's being said about you. And then again, going back to the job description or the job requirement. So again, just don't list jobs, the duties and responsibilities is, what is your brand? What do you want this person to know about your company? Just like, what do you want your customers to know about your company? Why they want to buy a telephone service from Warner Telecom than one of their competitors. And these things too, I think, are really easy to update on your website. Okay. So you get through the interview process, right? And before you go to an offer, I would ask the candidate if they have any more questions, because you want to get those questions answered to get the candidate ideally to yes. And if you are going to an offer, it's so important to be timely about it. It says, again, a lot about the culture. If it takes you a week to say, yes, we want to go to offer to get the offer out, that is an indication of how decisions are made. So if you can get the offer out because you want to capitalize on their excitement, and chances are, if a candidate is interviewing with you, it's highly likely that they're interviewing with somebody else. And even if they're not actively looking, if someone does an outreach, they'll say, oh, well, I'm talking to this company. Maybe I should see what's out there. I also think a really nice best practice is to let the hiring manager tell the candidate an offer's coming. If possible, to not have the hiring manager talk about numbers, because this is where you may have to play good cop, bad cop. So the hiring manager is the good cop, right? You want that relationship to be firmly established. You want them to be excited. So if there is any negotiations, that they don't have to do that. Now, sometimes it's not possible, but if you get to know the candidate, ask them before you go to offer if they have any additional questions. Hopefully there won't be any back and forth as negotiations. And then also I always suggest getting the benefits and the detailed benefits to the candidate before you go to offer, because a lot of times they want to compare and contrast with their current benefits, go over it with their spouse. And so if there is a delta, that you can address that, because sometimes we will have to offset if there's a cost. So I had a candidate that had to pay an extra $3,000 a year for benefits. And so we were able to put that in the salary so it wouldn't offset them and again, get them to yes. So any questions so far? I feel like I'm talking a lot.
That's okay. You're doing a great job.
Okay. Do we have any questions come in, Lisa?
No questions in the chat right now.
I'm just giving so much rich information that everyone is just engaged.
Tim,
Right.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah, great.
This is Dominic.
Hi, Dominic.
You made a comment about sending back an email or correspondence back to everyone that applied. Is that, I mean, I've never done that, maybe because, in our industry, it wouldn't be nothing for me to get 300-400 applicants, and the majority of them, like 95% of them, won't even qualify. And the other 5%, really most of them wouldn't either, but, I could possibly make point on 5% of them. But you're saying I should send a thank you note, or not a thank you, but thanks for applying, but we're going a different direction. You're saying something like that should be done to everyone? That's a good practice to do?
I think that's the best practice. I know sometimes it's not possible. So let me ask you this, Dominic, do you have an ATS? An applicant tracking system?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Okay. Because there is a feature in most applicant tracking systems where you can literally click the box on all those applicants that aren't qualified and send a batch email out. So you don't have to go in and individually do it. Who's your ATS? Do you know?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
We have a person that handles our HR with those type of things going on. They come to a certain point for the whole company. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would guess in this day and age, all it is a click of, so let's say you've got 50 applicants on one page and only one of them is qualified. I click the check on 49 of them and boom, it's sent out. And if those I also think about it this way. If those applicants are potential customers, then yes, I would say send them a thanks, but no thanks. But sometimes it's not possible.
Yeah, because I always followed up with people we interviewed, and there's been correspondence with all them, but that's, normally about 15 to 20 people, and that's it.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And if you can delegate or batch that to, I mean, I don't know how big your company is, but if you have an admin or a coordinator that can get access to the ATS, but
Okay.
sometimes it's not possible.
Yeah, all right.
But check your ATS. I think you'll be able to batch them.
I'll check into that. Thank you.
Sure. And we talked a little bit about the offer is if you have a recruiter at HR that they can extend the offer. They're the ones also that are developing the relationship with the candidate. Do that. Again, the good cop, bad cop. We had an offer that went out yesterday for a client, and I sent a note to my hiring manager and I said, he's really excited. He's thinking about it. He's going to talk to his spouse. Everyone on the interview team that has met the candidate, I suggest either calling, emailing, or texting like, hey, we're really excited to have you potentially join the team. It goes a long way. I had a candidate tell me that someone on the interview team sent him a great email, and it was a really witty email because they really had some connection during the interview process. And it made it a no-brainer for this person to accept the offer because they were like, great culture. I mean, I absolutely want to work with that team. So thinking about rolling out the red carpet for them. And again, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. A simple email is great, but that would be everyone on your hiring team. And then, if it is a big position, if it's an important position, I think it's always smart to get to know the significant other. And even if it's during the interview or even after the acceptance, someone in Seattle Execs, Andrew from Agora Northwest, he does the beverage services. After one of our candidates accepted the offer, he invited the whole family into the office to see where dad works. And again, it didn't cost Andrew anything, but it just really resonated with not just the candidate, but the spouse and the family. So those are some of the best practices.
Can I say one other thing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to bother you.
No, do it.
Because I think this is something that I always remember. 43 years ago, a person tried to get me to get involved with the radio station. And I said no. But he followed up with me and wanted to meet for dinner. But he says, I want your wife to come. And by having my wife come to the dinner, which was at a nice plush place, he sold my wife to get me to come. Okay. And I would never, I just wasn't in my blood, I didn't think, but I'm here 43 years later, so I guess it was. But the one thing I got to say that he did, which stood out, that I think is a great practice, and you don't see it anymore because people don't smoke, but the matches on the table had my name on it. Okay. That was back when people smoked, I guess, and it was a common practice to do things like that. But I thought that was a nice touch. But it was it's something I always remember. So specialty things to hire good people. I think what I always remember, it stands out, whatever it is, bringing the family into the office or getting to know them better. And but that's something that's stayed with me my whole career.
I love that story. I'm going to steal that from you, Dominic. I will tell you a little trick is we do get to the spouses. So we know that that is a good technique. I think I just mentioned that we went to an offer yesterday with a candidate. So we flew him into Portland on Thursday, and I went down too. And we each were, we were assigned a place to work, and they had our name on the outside of the door. So it said Kim Frost, guest of head of services. And then they had my candidate's name, and my candidate took a photo of that. And you get just something little, but I've never seen that. And it just really makes you feel welcome, but it's like, wow, I'm already part of a team. So thank you for sharing. So again, getting in uncomfortable conversations of, You don't go to offer. I always hate delivering that. But again, be as transparent as possible. I think we have to be careful about what we say. One of the things that I avoid saying is not a culture fit, because what does that mean? And how do you know the candidate? Do you know the candidate well enough that that's not a culture fit? So I would avoid saying that. Sometimes the best thing I can say is, you know, my client really liked you, or when I was internal, we really, really liked you. We just had somebody that had a stronger, you know, alignment to the skills and abilities. And most people will say okay to that, but some people will press. But even so, think about, I had to close a candidate for this client, and I just said, we have someone more senior, but we'd really like to keep you in mind for other opportunities. And my client was really sincere about that. Like, oh my God, I could use him in this role. So, you know, again, you want to be sincere. Don't just send an email to somebody that has taken the time to either Zoom interview or come in. This is of course before technology. I got a letter once in the mail saying, hey, we hired so-and-so for this position. And I was like, oh, I guess that was a position I was interviewing for, and I didn't get it. So again, thinking again about the candidate experience. And I talked a little bit about what Andrew did once the candidate accepted. And if you're not sure what to say, you know, I know there's a lot of legalese right now, so, you know, be careful with that as well. At the end of the day, we want to be respectful of everybody's time. And it is about speed, the quality, the care, and the data to help you make the decisions. Okay. So some little things, you know, little tips that I can suggest is send an email to the candidate. Here's who you're talking to. Here are the positions, their titles, any instructions around parking. If it's going to be more than 3-4 hours, have a snack, take them to a meal. When I was at Nordstrom, I helped them set up the executive recruiting function. And so when candidates arrived, we had a little Nordstrom bag with a bottled water. We had some mints, no gum, and like trail mix. And then on the way out, we handed them another little bottle with a thank you note in, thank you for your time. And there was one of those, not quite these water bottles, and I think I have a picture, but the other water bottles, smaller water bottles, they were neon and they had the Nordstrom logo on it. And, you know, I'd have to hand out bright pink or bright yellow. And, you know, the candidates, you know, if they were men, they'd be like, oh, my daughter, my wife would love this. But they really were like, God, I've never been treated so nicely. And again, it's not a big cost. I'm gonna talk about that, a couple little gadgets in a bit. And then I always think it's a nice touch to walk them out the door. You know, when someone's coming to your house for dinner, you know, would you say, you know, there's the door, you'd walk them to that. So just little things that make a difference that really stand out. Okay, so here's one of these little gadgets I was talking about. This is my husband's phone. And this came out a while ago, but we have someone in execs that priced it out. And I think these were $2 to $3 for 100 of them. Great logo. My husband hands these out at trade shows. I'm trying to think if I have the water bottle in here. No, I don't. So just little things not to break the bank. The water bottles that I was talking about, I think they were $8 a water bottle. And, you know, everyone wanted them both within the company and candidates as well. So a couple more things, you know, once somebody is hired, your job is not done, right? We want to make sure the biggest percentage of turnover is within that first year. So make sure their office is set up, their desk is set up, or if they're working hybrid, that their computer's sent to them. There's business cards, pens, notepads, anything with your swag on it. But I think it is a nice idea to have that area set up, or if they come into onboard, Making sure that lunch is scheduled with them on the first day, if not with the hiring manager, with someone on the team. Weekly check-in meetings, even if it's 15 minutes. How are you doing? Are we meeting your expectations? Do you have any questions for me? And I know I do this, that I'll notice that someone just started a job, and if they're qualified for the job that I have, I'll reach out and I'll say, hey, I noticed that you just started a new opportunity. You know, are they meeting your expectations? Are you happy? Now, the majority of the time they say yes, but sometimes there's a no. And so just, remember that those first 90 days, and even that first year is extremely important. Okay. And that is all I had. I am more than happy to go back and revisit a slide, but I know we've got some time. I definitely want to answer any questions that you may have, or let me know.
Thanks so much, Kim. Yeah, that was great information, a lot for people to think about, and a nice way, I think, for people to make their new hires feel more welcome in the organization, which is so important, and important for retention too, of course. So does anyone have any questions for Kim, or troubleshooting, or stories you'd like to share? Okay, well, if that's the case, then this recording will be available on YouTube, on the IEA YouTube page, like I said, by the end of the week, and you're welcome to share it with anyone who you think might benefit from it. Reminder that these IEA webinars are given every month, and they're free for you to attend or host as an IEA member. So thank you, Kim, for hosting today, and we would love to see you all again in a future call.
Good job, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
See you tomorrow.
You will.
Bye.